Hello, 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 and welcome to the latest installment of And Sarah Up Here. My name is Sarah, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around this SAG after strike, but I think I got the gist of it. It took a little time. I literally had to sit down and really hone in on what it was that was going on because a lot of people want to throw out AI and all this, and it's Attack of the Robots and yada, yada, yada. And it's like, nah, it's more complicated than that. First of all, Fran Drescher, she's been doing an awesome job as being the spokeswoman, not the spokeswoman, but the president. Let me get my ish together, okay? She's the president of the union, okay? And so kudos to her for literally holding it down and speaking out on the behalf of this union of writers and actors who are tired of basically being in poverty in an industry that is a multi-trillion-dollar machine. With that being said, getting to the nitty-gritty of it, what are the numbers? What is the real cost of a stream? And shout out to Flagrant Podcast. It's actually not a podcast. I want to say it's like a webisode. It's an online web series. Anyways, it's the brainchild of comedian Andrew Schultz, and he has a panel of friends that are on his show, and they talked about where I got the content information. They talked about what is the value of a stream when it comes to movies and compared it to how the music industry has seemed to have it figured out, even though there's problems and hiccups there. And also about kind of uh, what are the nuances that are going on in this thing. So just to break it down, the average SAG AFTRA member is making 27,000 a year, and that is not including any kind of health insurance, meaning these people have to pay for their own health insurance. These are writers and these are actors who are considered, not the upper echelon 10% of actors who are able to, get the larger contracts and the major movie roles. Because when you watch TV in America and when you've seen movies, there's usually a carousel of actors that are go-to individuals, highly professional, highly entertaining actors who are able to transform and go into these roles of these different characters, and we love to see it. But at the end of the day and at the beginning of the sentence, there's other actors that support the gamut of the stories that are being told. And while we're talking about stories, the actor is only as good as the material that they're able to act upon. Actors are not writing this material. Writers are. So why are writers competing with why would writers have to even voice competing with the salaries of top paid actors, producers, and CEOs within the entertainment or Hollywood industry? With that being said, I think it's deplorable. I think it's sad because it takes a lot of your energy. It's a labor of love to be able to go in and craft and create storylines, dialogue, settings, plots, different things that go into the making of a film. And you can't have a film without a director, without a producer, without an executive producer, without a screenplay, without a script, without lines. Without lines, you don't have an actor who is able to bring the story to life. So it's an ecosystem where everybody needs each other. Now, with that being said, when we look at, I love to play the devil's advocate here. I believe that the reason why people are demonizing streaming services is because of them forgetting what it was like coming out of the archaic times of having cable TV. Let me let you know something. Streaming services has done more for the American family entertainment than cable TV or box office was able to do. And here's the thing. We like to take our pitchforks out and we like to say, oh, the CEOs are terrible, da 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 da. Streaming services are family friendly. And the reason why is because streaming services care about the American budget when it comes to entertainment. You have to remember, we came from a time where cable companies were charging us $200 a month for 100 channels. And out of those 100 channels, your family and you watched maybe 9 of them. Granted, not everybody is at home all the time. The kids go to school for 8 hours a day. The parents are at work for 8 hours a day. The grandparents even have their times where they're being snowbirds, and they're in one part of the country for half of the year and the other part of the country for the other half of the year. There's a good amount of time where people are just not watching TV. So why are you paying $200 for 100 shows and only 9 of them are being consumed? At that point, cable TV was competing with the cell phone bill. And it was either you have cable or you have cell phone. When everything went digital, you no longer had the option to have an antenna because now you are no longer on analog. Speaking of analog, we have the Nielsen rating system. The Nielsen rating system gave hardcore numbers as to what you were able to watch and what was the cost of the view. That's why we had prime time slots. 8 o'clock, everybody knows, was the prime time slot to watch something on TV. And if you were a television show and you had that 8 o'clock slot, you were the moneymaker for that network. And that's how the networks competed with each other. That's when all the families were at home. And at 10 o'clock, what came on? The news. And that was another area or a category to be able to compete with each other along the lines. But now that we're in a digital age, the cable companies then were able to incorporate Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi and cable were two separate entities that needed to coexist because now the kids had to do all of their homework on the computer. So families were not able to keep up with the costs of entertainment in their home. And a lot of people started campaigning and saying what? Cut the cable. They kept the Wi-Fi, they cut the cable, and they paid for what they actually watched. People were not complaining and are still not complaining because they felt like whether they went to the movies, which yes, the movies and the box office gives you the ambiance and the experience and you have the concession stand. But let's be honest about it. $12, $13.50 for a movie ticket for adults and $9.50 for kids. And the average American family is toting about 3 to 4 kids with 2 adults. That can get pretty expensive. Then you have the concession stand experience. So with that being said, a lot of Americans felt like they were being screwed over by the entertainment industry. Now, going back and advocating with the streaming services also realized that a lot of Americans did not see themselves on TV. I like to bring in a quote from Bretman Rock. He is an original content creator. I love him. He's a South Pacific Asian content creator and so talented, so extraordinary, and looks damn good doing what he does too. He said at a commencement speech that he had that a lot of people outside of his community who were minorities and a lot of people even within his community would always say, I never saw myself on TV growing up. And his response was, if you don't see yourself on TV, change the channel. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant because as a collective, the American people changed the channel. They cut the cable cord and they also wanted to see more of themselves on TV. Nollywood, Bollywood, true crime stories, Latino and cinema, all of these cultures that make up the American people, the melting pot that we are, you can find yourself on a streaming platform. You can see people from Nigeria making movies. You can see people from Ireland making movies. You can see people from Iran and Persia making movies and content for their own people. And that was something that a lot of people were uncomfortable with when it came to going to the movies and watching certain productions come out in Hollywood. Not everybody wants to go to the movies and see an African American person portray a slave. Sometimes you want to see them in a different light and in a different role. That's something that we were not always getting from Hollywood. But with the streaming services being able to create their own content from content creators who actually come from a variety of backgrounds, now you're giving people the leverage to be able to see themselves and produce their own stories in their own light. So, going back to this, what do we do about the numbers? How are we able to get the numbers down packed? Well, I'm not sure how they're going to be able to release the numbers, because one of the catalysts in the conversations that came up on the Flagrant podcast platform was the streaming services possibly could be paying some of the content creators, some of the writers and the actors money for views that they never even got. But it would be a bad marketing ploy to be able to say, okay, well, we are not getting viewership on this content tier. And if you publish that and make it known, then a lot of people could potentially drop their subscriptions. It's better to hold them than to fold them in this sense, because you can get more viewership with the play or with the touch and go that, hey, we have content that caters to your demographic. Even if not everybody is watching this type of content, somebody got paid to be able to produce this here. So I do understand kind of what the play with that is. Also, there could be real damage if it's exposed that streaming services are giving content creators money for things that they're not actually earning. That could be something that hurts the industry as well, because it could be something as, well, now you owe money to the streaming services. But in order to, and here's another thing too, I don't really understand why we would not just automatically have a tiered paying system for content creation based off of the subscriptions that the entity holds. Meaning, this group of people subscribe to our channel and watch this percentage of horror. This group of people subscribe to our channel and watch this percentage of true crime. This group of people subscribe to our channel and they literally watch anything that's trending that we're promoting. So based off of the category and what people are watching across the scales, divided by the subscriptions, that is the payment that you're automatically going to get allocated to you. Now, we're not even talking about stand-up comedy specials, because stand-up comedy specials are a total different thing. I think Cat Williams had explained it, and I'm paraphrasing him. He basically said that your ticket sales are based off of the amount of money that you get offered to you for like a Netflix special. Netflix watches how many tickets that you sell for your hardcore actual live performances, and based off of the live performances there, you get money offered to you based off of what you sold, which I think is actually a pretty fair system. I think that's actually pretty fair. So with that being said, when it comes down to you're already a pre-made content creator, you're not doing anything live, so you don't have actual ticket sales to go off of. I think a solution would be for the analytics of Netflix to say, based off of how many people are subscribed to our platform, and not just Netflix. Obviously, this is Hulu, this is Amazon, this is Disney Plus, this is Apple, this is anywhere where there's a streaming service. But because Netflix is the most popular one, we tend to take the pitchforks out and go for them. But I love you, Netflix. I digress. Here's the thing about it. I love all the streaming platforms, but here's the thing about it. If you tackled it that way, and then you allow for the creators to put forth the effort to promote and allow for them to beef up their actual brand, or allow the actual fans to be able to hype up what is going on with the content of that movie, then at that point you can beef up, or you can bump up the pay and negotiate it based off of popularity and what's trending. And that's another tier that you can go up to, because you could have a movie like Fast and Furious that, let's say they want to take that movie and put it straight, let's say they want to put it on Netflix. Well, Fast and Furious has a fan base that has already been garnered. It's a fan base that came from the movie theaters. So people are going to definitely subscribe to Netflix because, oh, the Fast and Furious is on Netflix and I can watch it at any time. But let's say Fast and Furious, the latest movie, comes out, or let's say they did a series and it comes out on Netflix, and then you also have a true crime drama that came out. Well, the true crime drama is based off of real life events, and a lot of people are wanting to hear about this true crime drama, and it might not have as much fanfare as the Fast and Furious movie does, but because of the hype, the promotion, and the way it was marketed, especially on social media, now this movie is rivaling the streams with this movie that's already been, I guess you could say, syndicated or established. And I think it's a fair bargaining system when it comes to having tiers and bumping up films in tiers based off of the streams and the popularity. Who can get to the trending spot the quickest, right? So with that being said, I don't know how it's going to get figured out. I don't know how it's going to be dissolved. But just to wrap this up, Diller had a really great plan he had a couple of things that he said in his Face the Nation interview. In his interview, he said that top execs and actors should take a 25% cut, and that should be already negotiated in their contract, like a tax fee, to be able to go to the rest of the crew and the rest of the individuals who are a part of the films that they make. I completely love that idea. I remember as a kid growing up hearing about Keanu Reeves taking part of his salary that he had, I believe, on The Matrix, and giving it to crew members that were on The Matrix. Now, you got to understand, with a movie like that, I don't know if they filmed it all in Hollywood or if they had a certain destination that they had to film that film. But a lot of that film was CGI. A lot of that film was hands-on combat. You had a lot of that film that had a lot of costume design. It had a lot of set design. The Matrix was a very elaborate, intricate type film. So the fact that this man, Keanu Reeves, gave his salary to the crew members in that film, and I think he also bought them Harley Davidson bikes too, but he gave them money out of his own salary, which was probably a little more generous than that 25%. I think that's a great model, because an actor or an actress is only good as the lines that they're able to deliver. And you can't deliver lines unless you have a writer. And writers are not going to be able to compete with ChatGPT or AI, because AI does not have a soul. AI does not have depth. AI only takes from what is already published works. And Mr. Diller is in the copyright and the publishing industry. And I love that he said and confirmed that him and some other individuals in the publishing industry were going to be able to sue large tech companies to not use their already published and copied rights for AI to be able to make new content. That is absolutely golden, and that's fair. Let me tell you why. When I write something and create it, I don't create and write something based off of an already published work from somebody else. I write and create something based off of my imagination. And AI doesn't have an imagination. AI has data. So you are not going to be evening the playing field if AI is able to, in 2.5 seconds, garner data from the script of Pretty Woman and also get data from the script of I don't know, Funny Valentine, and put it together to make their own script. Let's say they took a script from Pretty Woman and My Best Friend's Wedding, or Runaway Bride. Love those two movies. Okay, Runaway Bride and Pretty Woman, and now Chat GPT or AI is able to make a brand new script from that. When me, as my own individual, out of my own imagination, creativity, I'm going to write a script that has nothing to do with somebody else's already published works. It may be inspired by maybe a novel that I read, or maybe but honestly, I could write a script based off of a personal event or based off of a historical event that happened in history and just make an entire world. And I think that is a very fair thing, to be able to sue tech companies and say, your system can't use my published works because your system has to work just like a human in order for it to be efficient. You have to show superiority in what your system can do. Your system is not going to be able to create something from thin air like how a human can, because a human has cognitive imagination and also a human has a soul. So with that being said, in a industry that is looked at as completely soulless, it looks like there may be a glimmer of hope. It looks like there may be some light at the end of the tunnel with all of the information that the general public is just now getting about how people are not really doing as well as we all perceive them to be doing in Hollywood. And another good thing that Mr. Diller brought up is there needs to be legislation that needs to go into effect to protect writers, to protect actors, to protect anyone who is working within the industry and working alongside artificial intelligence and streaming services. I don't think the streaming services are bad guys. You already heard my spiel on it, but I do believe that there needs to be a deadline, a September deadline. And I'm literally repeating what Mr. Diller's sentiments were. A September deadline needs to be had because people need to feed their families. People need to be able to go back to work. People need to be able to afford health care. And it's not in a good light that a $1 trillion industry is on the verge of collapsing because we're not able to share the wealth. Let's go with this 25% taxable pay cut that's going to the rest of the people. If you love the art that you do as an actor or as a director or as a producer, and you're used to making, that $100 million or $20 million a movie, if you love the art that you do, like how you claim you do, then you should not have a problem with giving part of your salary to other workers who have literally helped construct the ecosystem of your movie. Remember, you're only as good as the writer that you have. If you don't have lines, you don't have a movie. And if you don't have a key grip, if you don't have a director of cinematography, if you don't have PAs, if you don't have people who run the gamut in the ecosystem of the movie, then you're not going to be making a movie. You're going to go right back on social media, and that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be doing everything off of social media on your own. And if you feel like you can make a movie on your own and write and direct and play and do everything yourself, you know, you can go right ahead and do that. There's only a few people who can do that. I've seen Tyler Perry do it, but even he is not a one-man show, and even he needs help. So with that being said, bye for now.